Hey guys, good morning. This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Hold on, here comes a sneeze. You know what? We're going to leave that in there because today I want things to be about accepting who you are and accepting the beauty of all parts of yourself. Okay? So I want to start by reading a passage from Job chapter 2. Okay? I was going to, do Job chapter 38 and be like, who do you think you are? I'm God and you're not. And you don't have to know anything. But you know what? I think we've done enough. You guys get that point, right? So let's talk about us. Okay, let's talk about us when we go through these things. Enough about God. Okay, God will take care of himself. And if God gives you any problems, you tell him to talk to me. Okay? I'll take care of it. This is Job chapter 2. Now remember in Job 1, if you're not familiar with the story, Job 1, God and Satan were doing their little bet. They have a little bet about who could break who, right? So Satan takes all Job's property and mocks God. He says, well, does he fear you for nothing? He has everything you need. And then what else does he do? He kills all his kids, right? Takes all his oxen and the asses. The asses, you're taking the asses. And fire of God fell from heaven and burned up the sheep, of course, and the servants and consumed them. And then the Chaldeans, it seems, what did they do? Fell upon the camels and have carried them away and slain the servants, of course. The servants always get slain with the sword. And then a great wind from the wilderness smote the four corners of the house, and it fell upon the young men, and they are dead. Now, the one thing to remember, in all these tragedies, there is always one person that is able to come back and report to Job the severity of the tragedy. There's always one guy that's willing to ride home with you in your car after the tragedy to make sure you understand the gravity of said tragedy. Be on guard for that. Job's response in Job chapter 1, verse 20. Then Job arose and rent his mantle and shaved his head and fell down upon the ground and worshipped and said, Naked came I out of my mother's womb, and naked shall I return thither. The Lord gave, and the Lord hath taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. In all this Job sinned not, nor charged God foolishly. Job must have been a Jew, because only a Jew could be so righteous in the eyes of God. Let's read chapter 2. Chapter 2, verse 1. Again, there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came also among them to present himself before the Lord. Just because he's so well liked up there. And the Lord said unto Satan, From whence comest thou? And Satan answered the Lord, and said, From going to and fro in the earth, and from walking up and down in it. And the Lord said unto Satan, Hast thou considered my servant Job, that there is none like him in the earth, a perfect and an upright man, one that feareth God, and escheweth evil? And still he holdeth fast his integrity. Oh, let me make sure I don't miss any calls, because that would be a tragedy. Although thou movest me against him to destroy him without cause. God told Satan that Job's tragedy was without cause. And Satan answered and this is in the King James Version, which white people wrote. So you know it's true. And Satan answered the Lord and said, Skin for skin, yea, all that a man hath will he give for his life. But put forth thine hand now, and touch his bone and his flesh, and he will curse thee to thy face. And the Lord said unto Satan, Behold, he is in thine hand, but save his life. This morning I am giving you permission to curse God, if that's what your heart tells you to do. If there is any curse that comes upon you, charge it to my account. You are absolved of all blasphemy today. PKs, I'm talking specifically to you. I can take it. So went Satan forth from the presence of the Lord, and smote Job with sore boils from the sole of his foot unto his crown. And he took him a potsherd to scrape himself withal, and he sat among the ashes. Now, he's not talking about warts or herpes or anything specific. It could just be any kind of boils. But we live in such a time when these kinds of things are injected into people that have companies that are worth money, or artists that have great talent so that they will sign a deal, or all of a sudden videotapes will manifest of people that were tucking in genitals very well, or something like that, or something is going to be hidden deep within the vagina that will carve up the penis shaft. So, anything good God has created, Satan can warp. Okay? So those of you that haven't experienced, all of these things haven't happened to me by the grace of God. But I want to address them all, because those who cannot do must teach, right? Jordan Peterson? Then said his wife unto him, Thus thou still retain thine integrity. Curse God and die. Isn't it interesting how God didn't allow anything to happen to Job's wife? But he said unto her, Thou speakest as one of the foolish women speaketh. What? Shall we receive good at the hand of God, and shall we not receive evil? In all this did not Job sin with his lips. Praise God for the righteousness of the Jew. There is a lesson in here, though. There is a spectrum of abuse that we can take. And it is wise to have the asymptote. Remember we talked about asymptote, the line that a curve can approach but it may never touch. That asymptote should be this verse number 10, 2 verse 10. But he said unto her, Thou speakest as one of the foolish women speaketh. What? Shall we receive good at the hand of God, and shall we not receive evil? The rain falls on the just and the unjust alike. Okay, no matter who you are, if you live in Chicago, you're going to have to go through winter every year. Okay, doesn't matter how good your grades are, doesn't matter how precise your speech is, doesn't matter how tall you are, doesn't matter how big your dick is. Okay, we all have to go through winter at some point in our life. God may allow these things. God allows white people to make every suburb exactly the same, with zero creativity and increasing prices and stolen equity from whatever white flight deception they did in the past, gerrymandering and all that. God allows these things, but that does not mean he prefers these things. And I'm not talking about the fake God that Jews have created to make us all feel inferior about our true identity. I'm talking about the real creator of this universe, who allows these fallen angels to warp our spirituality. Okay? Again, if you get in trouble, just blame me. That's enough of the Bible for today. Job had some so-called friends that came over, 3 of them, and they started preaching to him. And there's nothing more irritating than a preacher sometimes. So, today when you go and handle your business, just remember, God can handle a few curse words, okay? Now, when you talk to your parents, they're just human beings, okay? And if they're paying your rent, if they're paying for the food that you're eating, if you have a Wi-Fi connection, if you're able to play video games, if you have clothes that are clean, good underwear, and if you have a pair of shoes, it doesn't have to be the best pair of shoes, if you have a pair of shoes, you're in the 1%, and you need to know that. Okay? So you don't need to be cursing your parents. That's not necessary. If you're from the East and they have traditions that don't align with Western traditions, you need to think honestly about why that is. Fathers are not known for their communication ability. Men are not naturally emotionally available communicators. You have to remember that in order for a man to be able to communicate freely about any type of deep emotional trauma or deep, anything related to emotions, there has to be a place of extreme safety for that to happen. Very similar to an erection. Okay, I know that that's a little bit, it's a little bit difficult to imagine, but your father is a human being, and unless, and I'm talking about myself right now, okay? So, in order for us to have that true intimacy, there needs to be an environment that allows that intimacy to happen. Now, if you're constantly challenging the authority of the office that your father paid for, and that your mother is supposed to support, now she's not supporting it, she is in the wrong. And, she has consequences coming to her very soon. But as far as you're concerned, if you want to know why an Eastern tradition doesn't match up with a Western tradition, men think very logically. So, the only people that are going to have kids of that kind of age right now are going to be millennials. I'm willing to bet that if you took a piece of paper and wrote down the things that they ask you to do and how that correlates or contrasts with the things that you're asked to do when you go to school, if you take that sheet of paper and give it to them and then ask them a question with that, I can't guarantee you that they will be open and receptive and be willing to discuss that with you, but it can't hurt, because I don't know a man my age that has ever turned down a logical discussion if it started with the foundation of respect. The boomers are impossible. They're a lost cause. Just let them die. Okay? Including my father. Let him die. I've apologized enough. Let him die. Oh, what a relief. Whew. Thank you, Lord. I needed that. But you shouldn't start there. Okay? There's always hope. And as long as you're alive, there's always hope. If something your mother says to your father, or a look she gives him, or something she tells you about him when he's not in your presence to defend himself. If you can, listen to the Lord in that moment. He will tell you what to do. Okay? Be very careful, those of you who are young and successful, especially with these women. There's more makeup out there than I've ever seen before in my life. I weep for you, I'm scared for you, and I'm praying for you. Okay? I had so much of a spiritual cushion that I could absorb a lot of hits, which is why I was so aggressive and proactive in my 20s and 30s. I knew that I had to proactively face the enemy. And I did it for this exact purpose. A long time ago, a girl I had a crush on was teaching me in Sunday school. She gave us all kind of a exercise. If you had control of a railroad track, if you've ever been on an actual train with the cars attached to each other, one after another. There's thousands of people on the train. And there's a child tied to the train track, but you could pull a lever, and if there was two roads and one had a child tied to it, and the other had gone off a cliff, and you had the opportunity to pull the lever and make the decision as to which way the train would go, but the child was your child, what would you do? It's a philosophical exercise. Do you kill one and save 1,000? Or do you kill 1,000 and save your child? It's not the Lord that puts us in these positions. It's the enemy, often represented by the Jewish community. They've infected every area of our society, even our families. That is the true herpes that we have to deal with. But if I can kill one today and save 1,000, I will rest peacefully. Again, I love you all, and I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you again soon, God willing.